Hi, Pashed. I'm just making sure everything is coming through to y'all okay. Cool. Awesome. I'll wait a little bit for some people to come in. Let the Zoya just sort of play this thing. Could be a bit louder. Okay, I can fix that. Wait, do you mean the microphone could be a bit louder, or everything could? Bassy background is a bit over the voice. Yeah, I got the microphone turned on quite a bit. Cause yeah, here we can do this. Look, I can turn that down. Have I tried the Mod Duo plus the Zoya? No. Because they're basically the same thing presented in different ways. You know? Like, they're kind of the same thing. The Zoya is a lot more interesting on its own, or with a synth going into it. Mic louder, I can't. I'm already clipping the input a little bit. Here, let me try. Hold on. Womp, womp, womp. I think you're used to hearing me like compressed to death. How about that? I'm watching the meter hit the red, so this is it. This is me without compression. Anyways, we'll make it work for y'all. Now it's clipping. That's gross. No one wants to hear it clipping. I should get a compressor for the mic on its own. All right, I'm gonna stop this. Womp. So we got 3 people in here. A lot of people were asking about the Microfreak, and I don't know if you guys want to. Hey, Bo, how's it going? Welcome. Thank you for taking time to show up. Now is okay. You read the same thing twice. Oh, okay. Yeah, there's a significant delay between what y'all type and what I do, live streamy. So, might be a little delay between what I read and what I do. So, do you guys have any interest? Do y'all have any interest in going over the Microfreak at all and then the Zoya? Because a lot of people have been asking about the Microfreak as well, and it's pretty cool. If that's something that's interesting to you, let me know. We can go over it. All right. Thank you for coming to the live stream. Before we get started, I watched, y'all probably already heard of him, but I just discovered Beardyman yesterday. I'm about 30 years late or so. I don't know. He's been doing shit for a long time, but holy shit. I am so impressed with his skills. He does these crazy ass, fully improvisational live stuff, usually using his voice as the synth. He just processes it like crazy. Y'all go check him out if you haven't. He makes me look like a 2-year-old drawing on a wall with a crayon in terms of musical prowess, which is fun. I really appreciate being able to see an incredibly talented person just fucking go nuts. Stream 480p only. I don't know, dude. I'm sorry. I limped into getting this working at all. Let me take a look at my stream settings real quick. It says the current resolution is 1120 by 700. I am recording this with my big fancy camera, so I'll go ahead and upload y'all a nice version. How do you feel about that afterwards? Okay, anyways, let's just get started. I'm going to talk about the Microfreak a little bit. I'll keep an eye on chat, but if I just keep staring at chat, nothing will ever get done. But yeah, I mean, definitely, but like this guy takes it to a level that is unfathomable. Like it's just this, he's just a master of his craft. Okay, so this is the ZOIA Microfreak. It is a digital synth with an analog filter. It is mono, but it is 4-part polyphonic. It has a bunch. Oh no, it has a bunch of. OBS has 2 religious. Yes, I know, Rasmus. It's just sorry, I can't. I don't know what to do about it. I will get you guys a nice copy after the stream is done. Okay, anyways, back to this. So, I'm sorry, I said it was polyphonic. It's not, it's paraphonic, which means it will play 4 notes, but they all share the same filter and the same envelope at the same time, as opposed to a true polyphonic synth, which is going to send each individual voice into its own filter and envelope. So, that's why real polyphonic synths are so expensive with the analog ones, because everything has to be multiplied by the number of voices that it does. Hey, Chumprot, nice for you to join. We're talking about the Microfreak before we jump into ZOIA. So yeah. Anyways, so the thing that's interesting about this, besides the fact that it's I think it retails for like $250 or something. It's cheap as fuck for what it is. It has like all of these different types of engines built into it, some of which ZOIA made themselves, and some of which were brought in from the open source version of Plates, which is a module, a Eurorack modular. So when you switch here, you have each one of these little engines, and then we'll go back to basic waves, and then you have these 3 controls over every engine. And the cool thing is all of these can be, type can't be, but these 3 can be modulated with the envelope, a cycling envelope, or LFO, or aftertouch, which this thing has. So basic wave sounds like what it might sound like. Sounds like we have some pulse width modulation. We can add a sub, which is nice. The filter on this thing sounds actually really good. So one quirk about it though is that like if you go into paraphonic mode, so here's monophonic. If you go into paraphonic mode, it drops the volume a ton. And I don't know why. It's kind of weird, but the filter sounds really good on this. I think it's a SEM style filter, which is pretty cool. Cat just entered my room, which means the dog has to stare at her and prevent her from doing anything. Riker, quit it. Quit it. Anyways, so the filter sounds good. The different types, we got basic wave, which you just heard, super wave, which, let me turn the attack back, has 4 wave types, a detune, which goes from almost like a flange sound, which is really cool, all the way up to a big ass chorus, and then a volume of the super wave. It's kind of like a Roland, what was that called? The big wave thing that they had? I can't believe, super saw. It's kind of like a super saw. Hey Riker, quit it. Come here. Come here. Sit. Down. Stay there. All right, what do we got next? Wop, wop, boop, boop. Wavetable, which is a series of 16 wavetables, a position within the wavetable, and a chorus, which I think is one of the most useless controls on this entire thing because it's monophonic. And what the fuck is the point of a monophonic chorus? Riker, I swear to God. Come here. Sorry, dog break. Come here. Come here. Hey, you piece of shit. Are you done? All right. Didn't realize the Zoya was so small. It is a insanely compact thing for what it is. It's pretty awesome. Let's just go through this real quick. What else we got? Let me show you this real quick because it's cool on the wavetable. So I said that these things can be modulated. So if I touch wavetable, which is going to be here, you can see wave in the mod matrix. If I go over to basically turn this and you find the modulation source on the left and the modulation destination on the right, and then click and then turn it up to have that modulation affect that thing. So right now the LFO is being set to modulate the wave. Let's see. Which is kind of cool. I stepped, so it's kind of weird. Let's turn that down again. I wish I could put the dog on the live stream, but he's on the floor where he belongs. Let's go over to timbre and turn up the LFO for that. And let's turn up our sustain. Now the timbre is being modulated by the LFO, and you get that kind of a cool, glassy wavetable sound. So, calm down there. The Microfreak is really cool, and it's been a really great source to pass through the Zoya because I can get a lot of different kinds of engine sounds in here. Also, there is an arpeggiator, which is nice. Let's go ahead and hold that. Hi, Josh. There's also a sequencer, which if you hold Shift plus sequence, we get the sequencer. There's 2 different sequence channels you can run. Anyways. Yeah. You guys have any more questions about the Microfreak? I know that was really quick. But I feel like this is mostly about the Zoya. But I can make some more sounds on this if you want. You can pass them into the Zoya, which is what I've been doing. All right. Since no one's saying anything about ZOIA Microfreak. Let's go ahead and move on to talk about the Zoya. Does anyone here have a Zoya? And does anyone here have any particular questions about the Zoya that they want me to tackle? I'll just hold on to see what the chat says. All 5 of you. It's an intimate crowd today in the Red Means recording live stream. Jason asks, what don't I like about the Zoya? Well, it's a very obfuscated interface. It's very abstracted. It's very easy to get lost in trying to remember what you've connected and how you've connected it. The Zoya is basically a modular system. So a Eurorack modular system, you have all these individual modules and you're putting 6. I don't know what 6 means. In the Eurorack system, you have like, patch cables that you hook between modules. And if you are confused about a patch that you've done, you would, just follow the cable and you'd be able to see what you've done and what you've modulated and what you've connected to what. But this motherfucker, all the connections are done with these like individual modules and, individual like sort of like points that you just touch and connect. And it's incredibly easy to get lost in your patch. And once you've sort of spent like an hour making a patch, unless you've spent like a significant amount of time organizing as you've gone, you're going to be confused as fuck. Outside of that, I said 5 viewers. Yeah, 1 is myself. I'm watching myself. Outside of that, my real frustration is with it. I wish it had a slightly more powerful CPU in it, because I feel like the Mod Duo X is beefy as hell. It's like a quad core ARM. If this thing had that in there and you were able to push it a little farther in terms of like what you could actually do with it, I think it would be freaking amazing. But not necessary, limitations, creativity, all that shit. And then the last thing that I don't like about it is something I don't like really about myself. And that's that I don't really know a ton about modular synths and modular gear and how they work together. And that's something that when I'm trying to program something on here and I'm trying to figure out what kind of sort of like CV control I'm supposed to reach for, I feel a little lost. But experimentation is how you get somewhere. And the thing about the Zoya, which I'm going to move closer to me. The thing about the Zoya that's astounding is if you think about what's actually inside of this, you're talking about like tens of thousands of dollars of modular gear stuck inside this thing. It's kind of like VCV rack in a box without the advantage of the sort of visual interface. So if this thing had the GUI that's in Chrome that the Mod Duo X has, I would absolutely love it to death. But as it is, being able to just sit here and press buttons and everything to make your patches is really, really cool. Does it respond to program changes? Probably. Unfortunately, it's not something that I've tried, so you'll have to check the manual for that. But there's a great guide online for you to check. So before we start patching, does anyone have any more questions about the Zoya that I can directly address? Boop, 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 boop. Yeah, Jason mentioned that he's a big fan of the fact that there's a community where you can download patches. Patchstorage.com, I believe. If you just Google patch storage, you'll find it. But I think it's patchstorage.com. has patches not only for the Zoya that people have made and uploaded, excuse me, but also patches for things like the organelle and like game system, like emulators and stuff like that. It's like a open source digital sort of like hacking preset community, which is really, really dope. So go check that out. Also, I believe that Cuckoo just realized, hey, chill out. No. Cuckoo just, I will put you out. Okay, that's it. Hold on, dog's going out. Get out. Get out. Get out. Motherfuckers jumping up on me. Yeah, that's right. That's what you get when you get crazy. You get put out. Cuckoo just released a big pack of patches that he has as well. So definitely worth checking out. He spent a lot of time with the Zoya, and it shows. His patches are very unique and very cool. Super, super cool. Okay, now that the dog is outside and I can not get jumped on, let's talk about the Zoya. So the main knob here is how you navigate all the menus and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to go down my patch list right here and find an init patch. Doop, boop, boop, which, here we go. I made an init patch. Init, nothing's there. All right, so I don't know if all y'all already watched the Zoya video that I made, but I'll just walk through sort of the basics of how this thing works. So on this grid here of buttons, you can press and you can see that a couple are lighting up. That means that that's a place where you can put a module, and this thing has a bunch of module categories. And you can see that the size of these things change sort of as I select different categories of modules and different modules themselves. And that's because once you've put a module down, each one of these little LEDs, these little squares, stands for some aspect of that module. So for instance, I'm going to go to my interface section, interface modules, click it. And the first one on the top here, which is probably hard for y'all to see at the moment, but is called audio input. So if I want to do anything with the Zoya, I have to tell it to do it. Right now it's in bypass mode, so that's why audio is passing through. But if I turn it off bypass mode and make this green over here, which means the pedal's now engaged, I'm not going to get anything until I patch it. So I want an audio input. Once you select a module, you get some options. I can name the name of the module, which is useful if you're starting to do all kinds of crazy stuff, or if you have a particular control section that's going to control something on a different page. You can name it so that when someone clicks on it, they understand what it's for. You can also change the color, which is nice. The Zoya will automatically try to put a different color next. Like if you keep on putting modules next to each other, it'll cycle through the colors, but sometimes you want to be able to choose the color yourself, and that's great. So I want a stereo in, I'm going to hit done. So now I have an audio input here. And if I click on these two things, this represents the input left and this represents the input right. But still nothing's happening. Rasmus asks, what happens when you reach 100% CPU? Does it try to stop you or does it start glitching? Two things can happen. When you start getting close to CPU, this little grid right here, which you can see changes state depending on what's going on, this will turn orange. And that's sort of an indication that it's reaching the top of its CPU. There's also a CPU counter down in the bottom right, which you can keep an eye on all the time. But when let's say you make a move or a copy or something like that overloads the CPU, the Zoya will just stop responding. It'll just stop. So you have to unplug it and plug it back in. I do have a patch that sometimes spikes the CPU, goes over 100 a little bit. And in that case, you get this sort of little static burst. So those are sort of the two ways I've seen the Zoya respond to overloading the CPU. It'll warn you though, like if you're trying to copy a page or copy a module and it's like, hey, if this thing goes over 100%, when you copy this, the Zoya is just going to stop responding. So it gives you a chance to like save before you do that, which is nice. So we have an audio input, still nothing's happening. I don't know if you can see, but on here, you actually get this little readout of the waveform that's going through, which is super dope. So I can tell the audio is going in there on both channels, but I still need to patch it to something. So again, you click anywhere, and you can see that it's cycled to green. I'm going to click down here. I'm going to go to Interface Modules, Audio Output. And again, I could control all of these things. One of the things about audio output that you have an option for is to add a gain control. And I'm going to do that. And I'm going to show you something. This gain control. So right now we basically have the taps for left and right output, which we will connect by holding this, boop, holding this, and boop. Now we've just patched audio input to audio output, so now at least we can hear what's going on. So the gain control for this is hiding over here, and I want to move this module over one so that I can actually access that gain control. So with the module selected, I'm going to click up, which is basically a shift, and that's going to give me access to these controls up here. Move, copy, edit, trash, star, eyeball, save, and dice, which I believe is some kind of randomizer. I haven't really fucked with it yet, so I don't know. So with that selected, I'm going to go move. It's going to ask me to move the module. I'm just going to move it over one. Now my gain control is here, and once I've clicked on that, I can adjust it with the big knob. Feel free to ask questions as we go through. If something like, if you're like, well, can it do this? Can it do this? Feel free to ask, because otherwise I'm basically just going to walk through doing some random patches, and, you know, maybe that won't be as fulfilling to you as you wish it to be. So one of the really, really cool things about the Zoya paired with the Microfreak is that, you know, this thing is mono as heck. Yes, it's a spooky eyeball. I don't know what it does. Yeah, so the Microfreak is incredibly mono sounding. You know, he's got that fake chorus that doesn't do a wide, but when you put it through effects over here, it starts to really just blossom. So let's pretend that the chorus in this is actually stereo by putting a stereo chorus over here. I'm going to click here. So again, my audio input there, audio output there. I'm going to click here. I'm going to go to Effect Modules. And you can see that this is lit up. A lot of the effect modules have multiple controls for the effect. So like, you know, a reverb is going to have a tail and pre-delay and mix and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to have our inputs, our outputs, and then, you know, in the middle, we'll have our controls for that effect. Rasmus asks, could I do a stream with the Mod Duo X? Yeah, I can. Probably not for a bit, but yeah, I definitely can. I want to revisit it in a bit. Also, that way you guys can compare this to that if you want. So I'm going to go to my effect modules and click in here, and I am going to find a chorus. I'll just list off what we got here. We got tone control, which is sort of like an EQ. We got a delay with mod, ping pong delay, overdrive and distortion, fuzz, compressor, a gate, a plate reverb, a hall reverb, a room reverb, ghost verb, a spooky ghost verb, reverb light, which is their low CPU one, which actually sounds really damn good. Phaser, chorus, vibrato, flanger, tremolo, envelope filter, ring modulator, and a cabinet sim. This thing is stacked. Cycle through screens of the various selected parameters with its view. Oh, that's super useful. Thank you, Rasmus. That's actually legit. That probably would help me with that issues that I had before with not knowing what was connected to anything. The dice randomly modifies a parameter or connection. That's cool. I kind of wish the dice was more like a big randomization, like it kind of just made a random patch, but I can understand that being a little messy. So I've selected chorus here. Whenever you select a module, you can make some selections, make some changes before you commit it to the thing. And I'll show you how to fix that once it's actually there. I want one in, I want 2 in, 2 out, because I have 2 in, 2 out. I also have control over rate and type, which just says classic right now. So I don't know why that's even there. So once you have a module already in there, if you want to mess with those settings that you saw when you made the connection, you press it, and hit up and edit, and now I'm back in that page. So if you accidentally like, fuck it, do it live. Rasmus, don't tell me what to do with my life. So we have the input and output connected. You know, you can just keep this dry signal connected if you wanted to, and then your effects could be all wet. You could like make another connection here like this, and then make the output of the chorus like this. Oh, shit. So if you accidentally make a connection to something you don't want, if you click it and... it's like that. So the way that you make connections is by pressing a button and holding another button. If you want to delete a connection, you do the same thing and press up and trash. So now I only have one connection, and this is going to be there. And great. So let's go into this and turn our mix to 100. And let's see, how can we make this more interesting? There we go, it's more chorus. I'm gonna take this timbre. There we go. So that is chorus. Let me turn this all the way down so you can hear. So here's our dry signal again. And that's with chorus. I don't know about you, but I'm already fucking loving that. Undo? Not that I know of. They're probably, maybe. I've always just sort of like manually undid what I needed to by, you know, fixing it. It's really easy to do stuff on this. I'm going to turn the exposure down on my webcam real quick. All right, yeah, so all the effects in here do sound really great. And adds so much to a mono signal. I haven't even tried running guitar through this. There are some undo button. There is a button on the big grid. Okay, well, oh, yeah, it's down here. Aha! There's a little undo arrow right here. So that's dope. That's super dope. Thank you, Rasmus. Thank you. You're like the unofficial manual for this. So anyways, there are some amazing examples of what you can do in terms of this with guitar too. So this is going really slow. So I'm gonna add a reverb so you can hear reverb, and then we'll try some other types of patches. So click here. I'm going to go back to my effect modules. I'm going to go to that reverb light because it's fine. I'm going to go 2 in, 2 out, and I'm going to change the color to yellow because our chorus is red. So there's our outputs. I'm going to have to break the connection of these. So boom, delete, boom, delete, connect, 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 connect. So actually, I'm going to break the connections of our completely dry signal. Doop, doop, doop. Because I want you to hear that reverb a bit more. Dwonk. And so now we're only going input into the chorus, and this should just be completely wet. Let's go ahead and bring that mix of the reverb down. So it's a nice sounding reverb. It's a real nice sounding reverb. Hear how it's just transformed the sound of our Microfreak from, you know, a good sound, but something that I could just play for 30 minutes straight. The dial clicks when you turn it. Sold. Yes, yes. You can hear that? Can you hear that? Here, come on. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So no, not Riker. It's not for you. Could an adapter knob be made? What do you mean an adapter knob? Yeah, should I just spend the rest of the live stream turning the knob and whispering into the mic? Giant steering wheel. All right. So obviously this thing can work as an effects pedal. We've just seen that you can do that. You can take your inputs and pass them to effects, and, you know, treat this like a guitar pedal. And I could just save this as chorus reverb, and then I have a nice chorus reverb if I want to get back to it. So that's dope. But this thing gets really crazy when you start being able to have it self-modulate with like CV values. So I had made a crazy looper thing. I'm going to try making it again real quick just so you can see it. So what we're going to do is delete this patch. I'm going to hit up, and when nothing is selected, it'll delete the patch. So every time you're about to do something that is sort of problematic or maybe problematic, it asks you to confirm by hitting save. So yes, I want to delete that. So now we're back to nothing. Can we layer patches, route that through the relay? Yes, you could. So I just deleted the patch, but basically, you know, we had our input up here, we had our chorus, our reverb, and our output. So I was kind of running out of space on this one, but for instance, I could have put a delay down on this row. I could have decided to route the chorus just through the delay and then to the output. I could have routed the reverb output, which the chorus was feeding into the delay and then to the output. I could have gone to page 2, which, you know, these are there's like 64 pages for each patch. I could have gone to the next page, set another input in, so another dry input, and routed a whole new page of effects. And then I could have made a control page that allowed me to sort of switch between them if I wanted. That's the power of this thing. It's freaking crazy. So I want to talk about the looper, and I'm going to use the looper as a example on how the CV stuff in here, or digital control voltage, can turn things on and off for you. So I'm going to go to my interface module, set up an audio input. Done. I'm going to go down here. I want 3 interface modules, audio output with gain control on. Okay, wonderful. So I'm going to click here, and I'm going to go into, I believe it's audio modules. And here we have things like oscillators and VCAs and filters, panners, pitch shifters, noise, bit crushers. So some of these things could be considered, yeah, you do see now how you can kill the CPU. It's like, holy shit, I just want to keep going. Here's where the looper lives. So the looper has a bunch of controls. You can also see that once I start adding stuff, it's going to increase the length of this on the page because I'm giving it more options. I'm going to turn our max record time up to 16 seconds. I'm going to change our length edit to on. I'm going to play the playback to loop. Length, I'm going to change to fixed, I guess. Here while recording, no. Play reverse, I will give us the option to play reverse. Overdub, no. Stop play button, yes. No. Okay, I think that's what I want. All right, so now I have a looper sitting here, and I'm going to want to route the input of my Microfreak, the input up here, into the looper. I only need really the left channel since things mono. And then I'm going to go to my output, which is right here. I'm going to give us a delay because it just kind of sounds nice. That's going to be in effect modules. Actually, I'm going to give us that reverb because it sounds real nice. All right, I'll connect the output of my looper into my reverb. Womp. I will connect the output of my reverb into my thing. And I should be getting, yes, okay, so now I'm getting audio into the thing. I should have CPU extensions. Well, like I said, like the Mod Duo X, like the CPU for that is burly as heck. And if Empress wanted to come out with a Zoya 2, which they probably won't at any point in the near future, sticking a powerful CPU in there would be dope. Now, I haven't actually heard what the CPU in this is. For all I know, it could be as burly as the Mod Duo X, but the effects in here could be more CPU intensive. That's all possible. I mean, we're talking about Empress level reverbs and delays and choruses. These algorithms aren't messing around. So the CPU expense could come from just the plugins themselves. So we have a looper now. Let's see. So it's set to not play. Let's see. What I need to do is go in here and set up an arpeggiator, something that can just play a sequence for me, so I can mess over here as opposed to fucking with this thing and trying to figure out why I'm not getting a sound. So let me go ahead and turn some stuff down. I'm going to turn paraphonic mode off. I am going to go into my ARP sequence. I'm going to turn hold on, and I'm going to turn my rate way down, and bypass this real quick. So the ARP sequence is now playing one of the cool things about this Microfreak is this spice and dice thing. This adds sort of variations to the arpeggiator. You can hear that without it, it's just hitting all the notes of the arpeggiator. But if I turn it up, it starts skipping notes. Dice is a little more weird. and it's not, it doesn't stay, but it changes like pitch and stuff like that. All right, so let's go ahead and return this. We want something really simple, so you can hear this. Okay, so if we go into record, the looper's now recording. When it's not recording, it's going to play back. Hey, isn't that already cool? Again, recording, playing back. I told it that I wanted it to have ability to go forward and reverse. Oh yeah, Jason, I think the Zoya and the Digitone would be an insane combo. So I can choose whether or not I want this forward and reverse, which is really cool. Now, let's add... Oh god, everything's playing. Okay, let's just record. Let's add some randomization to this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dig into the CV modules, the things that actually create quote-unquote control voltages within the Zoya. We just ran through our buffer, so now it's playing back. So I'm going to click here and go to audio modules and go all the way back up to the top. And what I want is, it's control modules. I'm sorry. I want an LFO. One of the things I had to wrap my head around with the Zoya is that LFOs, when set to square waves, are basically control signals. It's a 0 and a 1. It's on and off. So I can use this to send sort of on, like, I can use it to send control signals 0, 1, on and off to various aspects of these modules in here now. So LFO, waveform, I do want square, output 0 to 1, CV control, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So here's the LFO. Can you see it doing a blinky? That's the LFO rate. And if I go over here, the CV control rate can be adjusted, and it actually can be controlled by something else. So what I want to do is set this LFO output to the button that records. So now that LFO is turning the record buffer on and off at a rate set by this right here. The faster I turn this up, the quicker that record button buffer turns on and off. The slower that I make this, and I want it real slow. So we have to give it a chance to reset there. Let's go ahead and... There we go. So it just clicked. The record buffer is recording, and now it's turned off. So what I actually want to do is I'm going to make this reverse, and I'm going to go back into this and go to where it said record, hear while record, and say yes. Whew, this is already getting confusing. So what's happening now is the signal for this is coming into the Zoya. It's going into a looper, and the looper's record buffer is now being turned on and off by an LFO. And I forgot to save my change. So 1 second. Boop, doop. Here while recording. Yes. All right, done. We'll go ahead and turn this down. Now, I can change the looper pitch. So I'm going to set this. There we go. Go back to this. Okay, so now this is coming in. The dry signal is being passed directly to the out, so you're hearing this ARP all the time. But it's also going to the looper, which is set to reverse mode and set to pitch up 7 semitones. And the record buffer for the looper is being affected by this square wave LFO as an on and off. I can also change the looper start positions. I can sweep that. I can sweep the looper length. And this is what I did with my quad looper thing. I had 4 of these all set to different pitches. And I was modulating the record buffer, the loop length, and the loop starts with 3 respective LFOs. Now, if I wanted to do this here, I could go back into control module, hit LFO, go down to the waveform, and select sine. So a square wave is, let me put my hand in the thing. Square wave is going to be on, off, square wave. Sine is going to be like that. So better for what we're dealing with here. I'm going to hit done. And I'm going to go over to, let's see, what should I pick? How about looper start position? So actually, no, we'll do loop length. Okay, so I'm going to make the connection here. Now, well, did that work? Ah, there we go. Okay, so now you can see it being modulated. When you make a connection, or when you select a connection, you can choose the strength of that connection. So when it comes to LFOs, it's really important to change the select of that, the strength of that, in order to get the amount of LFO that you want, so it's not going like all the way up and down. Jason asks whether or not this would be a nightmare to play with live from a looper perspective. So as someone who is not really a pedal guy or a guitarist or anything like that, the whole concept of using something like this as a live looper isn't really in my wheelhouse. But in the control modules or interface modules, you can set these these things here. This is always set to bypass, but I believe you can set these two to control aspects of the things on here. So you could set this to the record buffer if you wanted to, and this to something else. So in that respect, if you wanted to, put this on the floor, play into it, you'd stomp here and, record, then stomp it again to turn off record. This thing can accept MIDI clock as well. So there's an interface module that could accept MIDI clock, and then you could set that to, in time, turn on and off a looper or something like that. So there's a lot of options with it. I really like it because it has this incredible potential as just a ambient sound maker thing. Please don't stomp on the Zoya. It likes it. It likes big stompy. Okie dokie. So that gives you a taste of what CV can do to an effect. Actually, let's add one more thing so I can just make it even more clear. I'm going to go to page 2 by making sure I'm sort of in this interface, and I'm going to go like this to page 2. You can see I have a blank canvas here. I'm going to go over here and go to effects modules, and I'm going to go to delay with mod. That's what I want. I want 1 in, 1 out. That's fine. Control rate. I believe that's what I want. Control rate or tap tempo. I want rate. The type You can choose clean tape, old tape, or bucket brigade. I prefer tape or old tape. We're going to use tape for this. And then a tap ratio thing if you wanted to set a tap to it. The cool thing about this is you could set a tap to one of the stomp things, or you could set a tap to a value on the thing here. So you could like tap a button on the grid and have that be your tap tempo. So the first thing I want to do is connect that looped signal into this. So on the delay here, we have our input, which is heading right here. When you're dealing with multiple pages on the Zoya, if you want to make a connection to a previous page, all you need to do is have that thing connected, that thing selected. So right now I have my delay audio in selected. I'm going to go over here and I forgot what my looper out is. My looper out's right here. So I want looper out into delay in. So now those are connected. If I go back and forth, I will be able to see that connection. Boop, 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 boop. All right. So I'm going to make a new audio output here because our thing... Yeah, Jason, you're right. Yeah, it's really easy to get lost. But the more you play with it, like I actually bought a pad and paper to start, like if I'm trying to conceive of a patch, like before I get into it, I will maybe sometimes draw it out so that I can implement it that way. For these more complex patches, it definitely helps to have a little bit of foresight going in. So I'm going to make an audio out here. Done. So this is going to be our delay audio out. And that gives me sort of an alternative mix control for it. So I'm going to go over to my delay out and go like this and like this. Now my delay output is connected to my a new audio out, my delay audio out. So you can already hear the delay happening. I'll let it kick in a second. That's because we have some delay on it now. Oh, I have it set to tap tempo. I don't want tap tempo. I want rate. When you're messing with things that have milliseconds or stuff like that, if you or anything that's like a value like the LFO rate and stuff like that, if you click on this, you can move between different ways of displaying the information. So in this case, for my delay time, I can choose hertz, I can choose milliseconds, or tempo. And we're just going to go ahead and choose milliseconds. Okay, let's go over to mix, make this 100%. So now you can hear the delay. Is there probability? You can create probability using LFOs or CV control, basically. So think of it this way. Like, first of all, ask yourself what probability is. It's the chance of something to happen. There's a CV control in here called random, which creates just it's just random values out, blah, 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 blah. But it can be triggered with an LFO. So a square wave LFO set to the random input will, every time the LFO clicks over to 1 from 0 to 1, it will create a new random value. So you can sort of use this in combination with some other tricks to create the chance that something will happen if the random value is over a certain amount. Does that make sense? Basically, you're through the constraint of the number coming out of random and the percentage of the connection to something else, you can choose whether or not it triggers something to happen. So in a way, yes, there is probability. I use that in my synth patches quite a bit that I did on here, where like I'm connecting multiple LFOs to trigger each other depending on whether or not a random value is being hit. And that's how I sort of gotten into that sort of generative territory with some of the synth patches. I hope that makes sense. So we have a delay here, and the there we go. We have milliseconds amounts for the delay. I'm going to turn this down a little bit because it's going to get funky. So I'm going to make another LFO here. Control modules LFO. I want it to be sine. Done. Now, where's my milliseconds? All right. I'm going to go like this. Like this. Turn this way down. Let's take a look at what we're doing there. Okay, now you can hear that LFO time is being swung by the delay. Which, you know, it's not as musical as you might want, but it's neat. Turn it way down. Yeah, Jason, I agree. The amount of power plugged into this thing is really astounding. Anyways, that's another example of how you can use CV to adjust the parameters of an effects. You know, if I wanted to, I could set up 2 of these and have each one being adjusted separately. Any questions before I move on from this patch? I want to do one more patch, and that's going to be like just using the synthesizer stuff in here so you can get a sense of how that works. Hi, Cuckoo. I was just talking about your pack. Your new Zoya pack. Congratulations on that. I watched your video, and what you've done with that thing is absolutely astounding. I still have not gotten the hang of a lot of the sequencing stuff on here. Yeah, we were just showing off how to use CV control to turn on and off things or modulate things about the audio modules and control modules. So we have a looper with some LFO control for the record buffer and for the loop length, and then we have a delay with the delay time being modulated with an LFO. Human spice latte patch. Okay, well, now that Cuckoo is here, I can embarrass myself trying to talk about the synth aspects of this. So I'm going to go ahead and obliterate this patch because it's fun and all, but it's not really anything special. All right, done. Okay, so we're not going to be using ZOIA Microfreak for this at all. Though I could hook this up via MIDI to this, and then this friend would be, you know, I could play on here. Like I could make a synth that I could play via a keyboard. Cuckoo's done that in his thing, and it's dope. So we'll just talk about this. So what is a synthesizer? Well, I had to ask myself that quite a bit when it came to the Zoya, because you get a synth like the Microfreak and you're like, I know what to do with this because everything is routed and envelopes work and filters are routed and blah, blah, blah. And it just makes sense. But when you're dealing with modular, you have to do all that yourself. which is great. So I had a little bit of struggle even figuring out like how the fuck do I make an ADSR work, an envelope work. So I'm going to show you. The first thing, the building block of a synthesizer is an oscillator. So those live in audio modules, and I'm going to hit oscillator. I can choose the waveform here if I want. Right now it's set to sine. We're going to set it to saw so that we have actually square. I like the square one. There is an FM in on here, so you can frequency modulate with other audio sources, including audio in sources, which is very cool. Duty cycle, which is going to be whether or not pulse width modulation works. There is an upsampling thing here, which I believe removes aliasing 2x, but it probably increases the CPU load. So we're not going to mess with that. So I'm going to hit done. I have an oscillator. If I click the output of the oscillator, you can see this big sandwich of a wave here. It's just a bar. That's because this thing is just pumping out a raw signal now, just like an oscillator would in any subtractive synth before you get a hold of it. It has no trigger though, so what we take for granted on the Microfreak or any keyboard where we press a key and it makes a sound, we don't have that here yet. Oh God, hopefully I can remember how this works. The next thing we want is a VCA, a voltage controlled amplifier, one of the most important building blocks of any modular system. So VCA lives in audio modules. I'm going to click VCA. Let's see what our options are. One in, one out, that's fine. VCA, done. So this voltage control amplifier is going to be how we control the volume of the oscillator. So I'm going to connect the output of the oscillator to the input of the VCA. Now the VCA has that big square wave in there and no output because it's set to negative infinite. Now, at this point, we need something to trigger that VCA to make a sound. I'm going to go ahead and put an audio output down here. Boop, 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 boop. Gain control on. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to connect the output of this VCA just so you can hear it. And we're going to turn it up. That's what we got so far. Just a big, farty square wave. It's not at all what we want. So let's go ahead and break those connections. Can I just hit undo? Not yet implemented. Oh, shit. I just tried to hit undo and it says not yet implemented. That's fucking funny. Okay, so delete that connection. Delete that connection. Boom. Okay. The next thing we want, and I'll put this here, is an ADSR. An ADSR is envelope. So I just gotta call it an envelope. Attack, decay, sustain, release. The four basic components to shaping the volume of a sound. So I believe those are going to be under audio modules. Yep, second one, VCA. What do we got here? One in, one out. That's fine. That's good. That's what we want. All right. So do VCA level control. Well, wait. Why did I do that? I just put a VCA there. I'm sorry. Let's fix that. Audio modules. I guess it's under control modules. I'm an idiot. There we go. Okay. Retrigger input on initial delay. We don't need hold attack delay. We don't need intermediate release, hold sustain release on. So you can make this more complex if you want to. We don't need the retrigger actually. Sorry if this is getting confusing. I will try to make sure that we go over it all. So now this ADSR, this is where I started to get hella confused myself. So the oscillator is going into a VCA, but it's just pumping out this raw signal. It's not super useful to us. VCA level control is still set to negative infinity. We're going to need to have the VCA level control. So the volume, the output volume being shaped by the envelope. So the envelope has a CV output. And remember, CV is control voltage, so it's how we can modulate things. I'm going to set the CV output of the ADSR, of the envelope, to the input CV control of the VCA. So now, theoretically, once we trigger this just hear ADSR, we're going to get the VCA to trigger as well. So at this point, we can connect the output of our VCA here and here. And let's go ahead and just do this real quick. So remember how I said that LFOs can be triggers? If I go to interface modules, control modules, LFO, we're going to delete this, but it's just a really, really easy example. So this LFO is now a trigger. I need to trigger my ADSR gate. All right. So now what's happening is this gate input, or the trigger input for the ADSR, is getting a trigger from the LFO. And it's saying every single time this hits, make that CV value of the ADSR of the envelope hit. And then we can slow this down. And then we can mess with the settings of our, of our envelope if we wanted to. So this is a very, very basic example of how you would trigger at least the ADSR. But we still have no pitch for our oscillator. So let's go ahead and delete this connection here because it is not what we want. Turn this down. Oh no, what have I done? Please hold. Okay. So we do need something to trigger that, and we need something to trigger the pitch of the oscillator. So I could do this a couple of different ways. What I'm going to do is set up a sequencer. I'm going to go into my control modules. I'm going to select sequencer. Now here I can set the number of steps for the sequence. We're going to pick 6. Number of tracks, 1. I think you can have up to 7, and that gives you a lot of different outputs for the thing, like ratcheting and stuff like that. A restart jack we don't need. Behavior loop, yes. Off, Okie dokie, done. So now we have 6 steps and a gate in and a CV out. This CV out is going to be the pitch for our oscillator, and the gate in will be an LFO, which I'll show you in a second. Let me go ahead and set these to some stuff. E4, let's see, E4, G sharp 4, B4, B4, E sharp, D sharp 4, and A3, and B, C sharp 3. There we go. Okay, so now we have a basic sequence, but just like the gate, just like the ADSR, it's like, I'm not going to do anything until I have a clock, basically. And what did we say were clocks? Well, LFOs are clocks. So let's go ahead and set up a square wave LFO, and we'll see what happens when we connect this both to the gate input of the sequencer and the gate input of the ADSR. And all right, we made a synth. Let me turn the audio down. So to recap what's going on here, turn this down again. The oscillator, the raw oscillator, the pitch for that, you can see it moving here, is being modulated by the CV of the sequencer. Both the sequencer and the envelope, the ADSR, need a gate trigger, a clock. Our clock right now is being set by the speed of this LFO, acting as a square wave. So that's the basic sequence. I could also introduce a filter into this if I wanted to. So let's go ahead and go to audio modules and choose multi-filter. We'll use low pass. Okay, so the thing with the filter is we want it also to be triggered by that envelope. You know how like on the Microfreak over here, this envelope controls the shape of the volume, but also controls the shape of the filter response. So I'm going to go to that output of my ADSR and attach it to the filter here. And turn that amount down maybe a little bit like that. And then turn this down. So that's being modulated, but we're getting way too much modulation. So I'll turn that down again. All right. So we need to connect the VCA output into the filter. So I'm going to break this connection. And we're going to hear nothing. Take that VCA out, find our filter in. Boom, 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 boom. Okay. Filter out. Hey, that's sounding a little more synthy, isn't it? Now, of course, I could take this and run it through a shit ton of effects. I could set up multiple sequencers. I could take this master clock LFO. I could take this and divide it. Let's actually do that real quick. Let's show what this looks like. I'm going to put a clock divider down here. Clock divider, output, -1 to 1. That's fine. All right. So I'm going to take this LFO output, our master clock, and I'm going to run it into a clock divider. Great. So over here, this little blinky right here is now the clock division. I can choose this to be as fast or as slow as I want. So now it's divided by 2. What happens if I attach this to the gate CV in as well? So now this clock divider is also sending clock to all the stuff that we sent clock before. And that includes the sequencer steps. So now I've just introduced sort of an element of every once in a while, the sequencer is going to sort of skip or not just go straight through itself. And if I turn that way high up, we end up getting some video game sounding shit. But if you have this down here, it'll do some interesting things now and then. I'm trying to think of anything else I want to say about this. Cuckoo, yes, correct. This is where the modular mindset's opening up. And this is also where it starts getting really hard to explain because, I'm not a modular guy yet. This has opened up my mind to the possibilities of it. I kind of wish I could do what I can do with the Zoya with everything. I want to be able to open up Ableton Live and be like, that thing over there, please connect it to this thing over here. And yeah, I know you can probably do that in Bitwig and stuff like that, but or Max, I guess, in different environments. But I just kind of want everything to be like the Zoya now. And you're getting a lot of feedback here. I don't know how the exposure is on the live stream, but like all of these things are blinking and showing you like the amount of things that are happening, which is really cool. Would you not recommend Zoya if you don't have modular experience? Jason, I don't have any modular experience. No, I don't. So yes, I would. You're going to learn a lot about how modular works within the context of something that the pro of it is that you have access to a shit ton of things. Like whenever you need a VCA, just put a VCA in. It hardly takes any CPU at all. In the modular world, you'll need to buy as many VCAs as you possibly can. Same goes for LFOs and stuff like that. So yeah, I fully recommend this, even if you don't have modular experience. Will it be a little frustrating? Yeah, definitely. But if you spend time with it, then it's happy. And it's such a cute little thing to sit down and mess with. Like the way that connections work, the way that moving modules around works, everything about it is just incredibly well thought out for what it is. I'm amazed with this thing. So yeah, glowing 2 thumbs up for this. Let's do something fun with this just as one last thing. I'm going to go over here and create a granulizer. A granular. I think that's in... I thought that was in audio modules. Boop, 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 boop. There we go. Granular. Okay. Number of grains. Give me more grains. Channels. Stereo. Position control connected by CZ. Side control connected by CV. Yes. All right. Let's take that output. Seems like a gateway drug. I mean, sort of. Like, you could be totally happy with this as it is. You don't have to buy a big powers thing, and you don't have to spend thousands upon thousands of dollars. And if you want to rearrange your rack, you just start a new patch. All right, let's take that output of the filter, which is the output of our synth, and bring it over here into the input of our granulizer. We're gonna have to do that with the right as well. Where's my filter? Is it here? No. Fuck. Audio out, filter right. There we go. Okay. Granular out, granular out. Let's give this a effect. Let's go ping pong delay. 2 in, 2 out. Type clean. Fine, fine, fine. Let's make a output right here. Let's go ahead and connect the output of our ping pong delay to a new output. Now we have granulizer in, granulizer in, granulizer out. Very loud. Granulizer out. All right. Why am I not hearing this? What have I done wrong here? Oh, I haven't connected the granulizer to the delay. Okie dokie. Let's modulate the fuck out of this granulizer. Control modules. LFO. Sine. Done. Grain size. Modulated. Slow that shit down. Probably want this to be up there more. Strength less. Alright, bear with me. Grain position. Let's modulate that too. Grain density? What's that sound like? That's fine, we don't need to modulate. Texture? Let's modulate it. Pitch? We don't want to modulate pitch. But I do want to change it to Yeah, modulate all the things. Let's make it an octave up. I like that. I think that's pretty cool. Let's give us some more ping pong delay. I think that's pretty cool. If we go back over here, we can play with... Hell yeah. Anyways, that is sort of the three faces of the Zoya that I wanted to show off. You know, I would definitely suggest going to watch Cuckoo's videos on it, both his mega walkthrough and current CPU. That's a really good question. We are going, it's sort of jumping around between 56 and 71. So I still have some headroom in terms of the CPU. Look at that light show. That's one of the other fun things about it. You can actually set up just LEDs to like little pixels to respond to CV, so you can make a whole page that's just like graphics basically for your thing. It's pretty awesome. So just to recap, we talked about the Microfreak, but we also talked about this as an effects unit, as a modulated effects unit with the looper, and then as a generator with a sequencer and a oscillator and a modulated granular. Savia CPU module is definitely the reverbs. Yeah, true. Like Ghost Verb is insane for CPU, but the Reverb Lite, which I just love, is fantastic. So I pretty much reach for that one unless I'm just basically like, do I just need a reverb, or am I doing a bunch of other stuff and I need a reverb? So the Reverb Lite is a great module that they included, and it sounds really good. So that's it, everybody. And I'll take some questions if you have questions, and otherwise we'll call this a day. No questions? All right. Bypass. Thank you all for joining us and you and me for this. I hope the rest of your Saturday is amazing. I'm really stoked that you made it too, Cuckoo. It's great to see you. And back at you for the inspiration. No joke. I always like your videos. And you. All of you. Your wallet is not pissed. It's stoked. Yes, Rasmus, what is your one question? What is it? The time Patreon emailed me that the stream is live. Yeah, that's because I posted to Patreon. Last times it had an email be that it's live right now. Okay, I don't know what's up with that. Sorry. No, I hope your day is amazing, EXZT. Okay, I'm gonna call it. Y'all have a great day. I love you. Go have a good time with yourselves. I'm gonna stop the stream now.